Good morning, how you doing? I'm really excited today because I'm in a location I've never been to before, and I'm also going to be doing some landscape photography for a change. Now, there's three reasons for that. The first reason is I've got quite a few wildlife projects on the go at the minute that aren't quite ready to be shown to you. So people who do wildlife photography will know what that's all about, waiting for wildlife, etc., even though you've set everything up. The second reason is I'm out with my vintage lenses again, which I love using with my A7r3. Just really get some cracking images with the lenses I've got. But also I've added a new wide-angle lens specifically for landscapes, and I'm going to be using that today, and hopefully a review of that in the future. But this is really the probably first or second time I've been out with it, so I'm hoping to get some nice images. Come to a really lovely place. I've got a couple of challenges today. If you can hear the sound of the water behind me, we've had an awful lot of rain and it's absolutely hammering down here. But let me tell you a bit more about where I am. Right, I've just come a little bit away from the main fall at the minute just to try and improve the sound quality. As I say, we've had an awful lot of rain and it's absolutely hammering it down, the falls today, which is going to make the type of photography I'm after quite challenging, but hopefully I can get something from today. So where am I? Well, I'm at the Lumsdale Valley, which is just outside Matlock. Really accessible location as regards getting here, because literally you're just outside the town of Matlock. What I found this morning so far is that some of the main mill buildings that used to be open are at the minute fenced off. I don't know how long that's going to be for. It may just be for health and safety reasons, and they may never open them up again. It does say that just due to erosion and stuff, but the main fall is open, and obviously you can see there's some buildings behind me. So what you've got is a series of falls. Now, these mill buildings were obviously, during the Industrial Revolution, these mills sprang up and they used the water to power the mills, etc. There's a couple of ponds further up to obviously collect the water, and then you've got a series of falls coming down this really steep valley. Still got some autumn colour today, which I thought probably it would all been gone by now, but there is some nice colour around. And what I'm hoping to do is get a certain style of image today, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. As I say, really easy place to get to, and a good place to spend a couple of hours. If you're staying in Matlock or whatever, you can just whip up here and while away a couple of hours doing some photography. And yeah, we'll see what we can get. Right, so one quick tip I would give you for shooting in these conditions, obviously, as I said to you earlier, when you've got a lot of water flowing down a waterfall, and I will take an image to show you this with the 24mm in a minute. I'll try and get as much of this fall in as I can and just see what you think to the image. Because there's such a torrent of water coming down, all the shapes of the rocks and everything that normally you would see sticking through the water, all those little channels that the water creates as it makes its way through, a lot of those are obliterated because basically the water is coming over the top of everything. So what you end up with just is a white mass coming towards you. There's no contrast, there's nothing between the two. So what I've been doing this morning so far, if you think you get to a location like this and you think, oh, it's a waste of my time, when I first saw this location, I immediately thought, you've got mill buildings, you've got waterfall, it just screams fantasy image to me. So that's what I came here with the intention of creating. Unfortunately, a lot of the mill buildings are closed off. I'm going to see if I can include some of that in the image later on. And I'd like to go wider and get more in the shot so that I can include that and try and make a really ethereal fantasy image. But as I say, because there's such a lot of water coming down, what I tend to try and do is focus on small areas. So there are areas where the water probably doesn't normally come over, but it's being forced over, and you get these little rivulets and falls coming off the side. So at the minute what I'm doing, I'm shooting with the 135mm, the old Pentax lens, and just trying to isolate those small areas and just focusing on that and cut out the massive torrent that's coming down. And what I'm also doing is shooting in black and white. Again, for me, when I'm thinking fantasy and I'm trying to create that type of image, and trying to get a contrast between the flowing water, the rocks, the shapes it's creating, the colour, the darkness of the rocks, contrast between shapes, contrast between lines, contrast between colours. So obviously a light colour in black and white will give you a really light grey or a white, whereas a dark colour will give you a black. So it gives you that contrast between the two. Also different textures on rocks, on whether they've got moss or whatever on compared to a rock that's got nothing on it at all. So you're looking for all those contrasts, and I find that shooting black and white really brings that out, and you can also bring a little bit more of it out in post-processing. So that's what I'm doing today, because that's what the conditions have forced me to do, really. Right, so this is one of the few shots that I can actually get out of some buildings, and it's quite nice actually, because what you've got in front of you is, it's like a higgledy-piggledy massive arches and stairways that are all covered with ivy. It's obviously a group of buildings that have maybe grown up over time and they've added different bits, and yeah, it's just like ancient stone with archways and fallen down walls. It looks absolutely fantastic. The only problem you've got is you've got a fence around it, which obviously so people can't climb on it. You've also got some unattractive buildings behind that have got tarpaulins on, which you've got to try and cut out, and we've got a really bland, horrible sky, as you can probably see from up here today, which I'm trying to cut out as much as I can. 50mm lens. I'm at about f8 and I'm on, let's have a look, an 1/8 of a second, and again I'm shooting in black and white. And the thing you have to realise, and I'm assuming this is the same with all cameras, with Sony, if you put the creative style into black and white, actually when you upload the raw file onto your computer it comes out in colour. It's quite easy to convert it to black and white, but what this does, it means you can see the image on your display while you're taking the shot or in the viewfinder in black and white to give you an idea of whether it's working or not. Right, and again I've just moved literally 10 yards around the fence to get another view of these same buildings, which I can get a little bit more in. So I'm shooting in landscape mode. Left the 50mm on because it's just perfect for cutting everything out I want to cut out and just giving me this building. It's something that actually, with some mist and fog around, would look absolutely fantastic. So it's something I might actually play around with in Affinity, because you do have some sort of mist and thing filters in there that, you know, I'm trying to create an image that's creating a feeling. So as far as I'm concerned, once I've got the base image, I can pull it around and mess around with it as much as I can, just to try and get the feeling that I was looking for. So I'm going to take a couple of colour images. I'm at an 1/8 of a second again, ISO 50, and I think again, yeah, f8 on this lens. So now I'm going to switch to mono just to see black and white, just to see what that looks like. Yep. And I think I can really make some of this stand out. Let's have a look. Yeah, it looks like it blends into the background quite a lot at the minute, but what you can do in the processing of this is use the dodge and burn tool, which you've got in Photoshop as well, just to darken the dark bits and lighten the light bits and just bring out that contrast even more, and actually just lead the eye of the viewer where you want the eye of the viewer to go. So yeah, once I've got the base image, I'm quite happy that I can do something with it. Right, I've come away from the water, so hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. I just wanted to really explain a few things about when I'm doing landscape photography, what I'm trying to do. So when I came to this place today, I had an idea in my head from the images I'd seen before, and the fact that you've got old buildings and waterfalls close together. It just sprang into my mind that this is like, you know, it's like a, can we create sort of a Rivendell type feel, you know? If anybody's seen The Lord of the Rings, I'm sure you have, or The Hobbit, that really grand building perched in the side of a valley that's absolutely just waterfalls everywhere. It's absolutely stunning. And, you know, to try and create that same feel with an image is what I was trying to do today. Now, I've been scuppered a little bit because there's so much water coming down there. There's no big expanse that I can take an image of, and there's not really anywhere where I can join the waterfall in with the buildings, because a lot of the buildings have been closed off at the minute because of erosion, which is fair enough, so I can't get to them to get the things close together. But what I'm trying to say to you is, when you're doing landscape photography, what you're trying to do is not only create an image for yourself that takes you somewhere else, but is also going to take somebody else somewhere else as well. It's going to make them have feelings, different feelings. You know, is it taking them to a fantasy world, or is it just reminding them of somewhere they've been before? So that's what you're trying to do. And if you can do that and tell a story, you know, maybe just one image tell a story, or maybe pull a group of images together to create a story that leads the viewer through, and they can follow that story and follow those emotions, then that's what makes a fantastic image, and that's what you've got to strive to do. Well, I've come out of the way of the waterfall again because it's still coming down in a torrent. It would have been quite easy today to go home and say, look, I can't get any shots. All the shots that I thought were there, you know, that I was thinking before I came, aren't on because there's just too much water coming down. However, as a photographer, you learn to be adaptable. You've got to. You don't always get the conditions you want. You don't always get the scene that you want. It might have changed. Like today, you know, a lot of the buildings aren't available because they're all closed off and fenced off, so you can't take any images of them at all. So what do? Do you just go home, or do you say, right, well, this is what we've got, let's work with it and see what we can do? And it actually will make you a better photographer, because what you're having to do is just adapt, look for different things, open your eyes to other possibilities, look for the smaller things that might make a nice composition, and you know, if you can't get the big scene that you're after. That's exactly what I've done today. I'm quite happy with the images I've come away with. I will be visiting here again. It's a great place if you're visiting Matlock or anything to come out for just a couple of hours. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time for another one. Take care till then.